Dr. Tony Monteiro is a professor based out of Philadelphia and an expert on the life and works of W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the most important thinkers of the 20th century. This year, he and his comrades are holding an event called Philadelphia Reads Du Bois. The Year of Du Bois will begin with a celebration of his vision of the unity of Pan-Africa and Pan-Asia against colonial oppression and for the building of a better world. The event will begin with a symposium that is being held on February 23rd and 24th, 2018 at the Church of the Advocate in Philadelphia, which he invites students and all who are interested from across the country to come and join in. I spoke with Dr. Monteiro from Philadelphia. Dr. Monteiro, I want to start off by asking, just in a general sense, who W.E.B. Du Bois is and what his book Darkwater is when it is published.
Yeah, well, W.E.B. Du Bois is one of those great thinkers that emerged out of the struggle for Black freedom. He was a sociologist, a philosopher, a novelist, a musicologist, and above all, he was a person that combined knowledge and social science with the practical life experiences of ordinary people, especially Black people. And he tied knowledge to the civil rights and Pan-Africanist struggles. So he was that kind of figure. Now, the book Darkwater is a very unique book, even for our time, in that it combines literature, poetry, fiction, and political science and sociological investigation, all in one book, attempting to illuminate what the race problem in the United States and the colonial problem in Africa was at the time of the publication of the book, which was in 1920.
So, one of the things that seems very clear as a theme that he's working with is the idea that would later come to materialize in the slogan "Black is Beautiful" and the idea of opposition to anti-Black racism. And I was wondering if you could touch on that.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you raised. And you know, he is indeed putting forward a form of what we would today call Black is Beautiful, but he links Blackness or the origins of Blackness to Africa and to African civilization. And he also says that Black folk in the United States are a derivative of African civilization, and on the other hand, are a civilization in their own right. So he's addressing the problem of race in a way that is quite different from what many of us are accustomed to today. He's not talking about assimilating Black people into American culture, but liberating Black culture from the oppression of American culture. So it's very interesting in that respect. And I think, you know, if we look at the short story, The Comet, which was very well known at the time of the publication of the book Darkwater, you know, he's combining satire with allegory. In other words, an allegory is a way in a short story or in a novel of using a situation that is not actual to talk about and clarify actual situations. So, you know, in The Comet, a comet like Halley's Comet hits New York. and most people in New York, or practically everybody in New York, is killed except for two people, a black man and a white woman. And he takes it from there. What happens if all of the people in this big metropolis are killed and these two people are left to start all over again?
Right. Now, how did Du Bois feel about populations from what we would call the African diaspora, like, say, Dominican Republic or Haiti or other parts of Latin America, who had African origins also, but were coming into America by way of these Spanish-speaking countries?
Or French-speaking countries.
Right.
Because, Du Bois's father was Haitian from the Caribbean island of Haiti. And so he, you might say, was bicultural. He was both African American or Black American and Haitian. And he felt that the Africans, or those of the African diaspora, let us say in the Caribbean or in South or Central America, coming into the United States would meld into the black population here, in spite of the fact that they came speaking Spanish or French or Portuguese, and in spite of the fact that they had certain cultural patterns that were different from African Americans. Being from Africa, they would have more in common with one another, especially as they face racism and white supremacy, than they would have in common with the white American mainstream. So he looked positively upon the Caribbean and South and Central American immigrants, although he was not naive, so he understood that there were differences, and often those differences could produce problems.
Okay. One of the essays in Darkwater that I think is a very interesting kind of moment that Du Bois echoes with the ending of the Comet is the Damnation of Women essay, where he talks about the degradation of women of color. And I think at the end of the Comet, there's this moment where you see the melting away and obliteration of racism, at least beginning to take place in what they're discussing. So I was wondering what you thought about that.
Well, that's interesting that you put those two together. That's an interesting kind of uniting of two different themes or ideas. The damnation of women is like a feminist text, but it's a feminist text, a black feminist text, in that it looks at the special problems of black women. Not only are they the same as women in general, but they are intensified and made more difficult because of racism and the color line. And in fact, he argues in the Damnation of Women that the African woman is the mother of modern humanity, and that he talks about this idea that he calls the African mother idea, the idea that the African woman is at the foundation of human civilization itself. Now, in the Comet, he's dealing with a modern situation in a kind of allegorical sense, a fictional sense, where a comet hits the Earth. And New York is decimated, its population. And a black man and a white woman are left to rethink the future. But that rethinking of the future, and that is to rethink a future without racism and white supremacy, where the two races would begin anew in equality. But that at the end is defeated because, unbeknownst to the two people who are alive in New York, there are other white people, especially white men, who were in other parts of the country who come and find these two people and say to the white woman, "Now you are safe. We have saved you." And in fact, they imply that they have saved her from this black man. And the rich white man says, "Here's a few dollars," gives a few dollars to the black man. And the poor white people say, "We will lynch this black man because we suspect him of having sex with our white woman." And so it ends that way. It ends literally where it began, in a white supremacist New York, in a white supremacist social system.
Right. And it's kind of like two opposites between the first Damnation of Women essay and this ending moment, because the salvation of the woman has come through the African man and what he is able to offer in terms of being someone willing to stand in solidarity with her, and that is thrown asunder in the name of white supremacy.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. And in The Damnation of Women, what he says is that women are emancipated through work and education. As long as women are locked in to patriarchal marriages and are confined to the home or the household, and are denied are given only second-class jobs and second-class education, they can no longer be free. A woman, according to Du Bois, must have the right to choose marriage or not to be married, and must have the opportunity for full education and an equal education, and the right to make a salary that is equal to what any man would do, and the right to hold jobs and occupations that any man would hold. Now, in The Damnation of Women, Du Bois is thinking first and foremost about the working class and poor woman. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
As he is in the Comet, because, this kind of joining of this black man with this white woman in a unity to create or build a new future. The black man is a working class man, and the white woman is a more upper class, rich woman.
Right. Now, you and your comrades and colleagues down in Philadelphia are having a 150th anniversary recognition of Du Bois and his birth with your Saturday Free School movement. I was wondering if you could just discuss some of the things that are coming up with that.
Yes. Well, first of all, let me just direct you to our website, yearofdubois, one word, .org, and you get a lot of information there. But, this year, 2018, is the 150th anniversary of W.E.B. Du Bois's birth. And here in Philadelphia, we're trying to mobilize and engage the entire city, schools, unions, churches, colleges, community organizations, left organizations, in a year of symposiums, cultural celebrations, panels, and a year-long effort called Philadelphia Reads Du Bois, where throughout the city, on the second and fourth Sunday of each month, people will gather to read various of the works of W.E.B. Du Bois, and this will go on for an entire year. Also, we're going to have pop-ups throughout the city where we will pop up, people will pop up in different places, like at transit stops, at colleges, and read from various books and essays of W.E.B. Du Bois. And on one of the radio stations here, which is the Black-owned talk radio show, we will have every week readings and interpretations and discussions of various of the works of W.E.B. Du Bois. So we want to immerse the entire city in this project of reading Du Bois. It's kind of a literacy campaign where people who can't read will feel as comfortable as people who can in this project of reading Du Bois. You don't have to know how to read Du Bois. Most of it will be reading aloud. And I guess the last thing is that we have presented a resolution to the City Council to declare 2018 in the whole city the year of Du Bois.